dialogue that was called by President William Ruto. They're saying, you know what, it's time to act, and it's enough talk. All we want is action as a country, as the clarion call by these Gen Zs remains that they want a better Kenya and that they're fighting for their future. And of course, we equally went to Mombasa County earlier on, and we saw the same situation being witnessed, police engaged in running battles with protesters. We've seen tear gas being lobbed, but the number of protesters that have taken to the streets is a drop in the ocean compared to what we saw 2 weeks ago when that finance bill was withdrawn, when we saw protesters occupy Parliament here in Nairobi, a situation that led to a number of deaths. And this is what Kenyans are saying. We want justice. They have not seen any of the police officer or any of the individuals that were, involved in the extrajudicial killings held accountable. The youth are equally saying that they want to be employed, as many of them are unemployed. They say they want a better Kenya, not just for them, but for all of us Kenyans in general. They're saying that they're fighting for the country and that they will continue with the fight. Now, we saw the last wave of the Gen Z-led demonstration result in good yields, if I may say so. And of course, this is what is keeping that fire that is burning in the Gen Zs going. They're saying the fact that they saw President William Ruto concede. It means that a lot can be done in this nation, but it is not being done as it should. Of course, we equally saw yesterday President William Ruto blame NGOs for sponsoring these particular protests. In specific, he did blame the Ford Foundation. And yesterday he said that they should come out clearly and state its agenda. But we equally saw the Ford Foundation come out and saying they're not sponsoring these specific protests. Of course, this is after we saw the government point a blaming finger to a number of people, from the opposition to Russia that we saw earlier on. We equally saw the Deputy President, Rigathi Gachagua, claim a few weeks ago that the National Intelligence Service was trying to frame him and former President Uhuru Kenyatta as the financiers of the anti-government protests. So we saw the government claim that a number of people, a number of organizations have been financing this specific protest, and the Gen Z keep on saying that that is not the case. They are leaderless, they're leaderless, they're tribeless, and they're just fighting for their right. So that is the situation that we continue monitoring for you here at KTN News. Our reporters are across the country, just ready to give us updates. We went to Mombasa earlier on. We equally went to Nakuru, where Ken Gashuhi did tell us that 2 protesters have been injured, and that he did mention that he's spoken to a number of protesters, and there's no clear agenda of these particular protests that are being witnessed today. He did equally mention that earlier on, protesters tried blocking the Nakuru-Eldoret highway, but police are trying to bring calm and restore order in that particular city. In Mombasa, we saw equally protesters engage in running battles with police officers, tear gas being lobbed to disperse those specific protesters. The same situation that was witnessed in Kitengela, where we saw some of those protesters trying to block the roads in and out of Kitengela. So let's just cross over to Nakuru and listen in to what exactly is happening there.
Wananchi na hata wanabiashara pia, ili wakora wahalifu wanaoingia kwa waandamanaji pia waweze kushikwa na kuwekwa ndani, ili kila mtu aweze kupata haki yake. Hiyo ndio ombi langu kwa saa hii, lakini Wakenya pia lazima tuwaheshimu haki ya kila Mkenya. Wanapoandamana wasidhulumiwe, juu hiyo iko katika katiba ya Kenya. Hiyo ndio ombi letu kwa wakati huu, na Mungu aweze kutubariki kama nchi.
Safi kabisa, asante.
Asante mheshimiwa.
Ndio hawa Nakuru.
All right, that is just a protester giving a take on the situation in Nakuru. As you can see there, these are live pictures in Nairobi CBD. If I'm not wrong, a few protesters are being arrested by police there as they try and restore order. And earlier on, we saw crowds building up in Nairobi CBD as police dispersed them. The crowds sort of disperse and then regroup later on and come out even stronger, if I may use those words that are being used by some of the Gen Zs. But just to talk about the unrelenting protest that we're seeing in the country, and the Gen Z are saying this continuous call is for the country to be reformed once and for all. They keep on saying that they're fixing their country one step at a time. And of course, they're saying that the administration has reached a point of either reforming the whole system or ending up as the most unpopular regime ever elected in these countries. And the posters circulating online emphasize a key constitutional principle: all power belongs to the people. This message that we've seen underscores the belief that citizens hold ultimate authority over their government, a sentiment that has galvanized the youth into action. The call for demonstrations stems from ongoing frustrations with government, corruption, and a perceived lack of accountability by those in power. Now, we did see President William Ruto come out and say, you know what, it's time for us to have a national dialogue. And of course, the youth are saying that the president should not call for a national dialogue. Enough with the talks. All we want is action. We want a better Kenya, and they're fighting for the future. And of course, those talks that were supposed to happen failed to start, as we've seen leaders that are divided. There are those who are for protest and for reforms, and those who are maintaining that the status quo should continue as is. And of course, we saw those particular talks that were supposed to kick off yesterday with leaders appearing from different scripts to fail. And equally, what many people were saying is that they don't want the opposition leader, Raila Odinga, to be part of those talks. They're saying, even with the dismissal of those cabinet secretaries, that they do not want the same leaders to be recycled, that it's time for change here in the country at Kenya. And earlier on, we spoke to Tobias Chanji, who is in Mombasa covering those protests. And what Chanji was telling us is that as much as the police officers were there trying to restore order, trying to protect those protesters, they're saying that the protests were peaceful before police officers tried dispersing protesters. And of course, we've seen protesters not only in Mombasa, but equally in Kisumu, as well as in Kakamega, in Nakuru, and here in Nairobi, decrying the fact that these police officers who are on the ground are using live ammunition just to disperse those protesters. You can see there our reporter is trying to prepare to give us an update on what exactly is happening. That is Jeff Mogire. Jeff Mogire, what's the situation? Where exactly are you in Nairobi CBD, and what is happening? We've seen protesters engage in running battles with police, and therefore afterwards regrouping after they're dispersed. Talk to us.
Now, police officers have lobbed a tear gas on the other side against protesters who are here trying to call on the government to hear them out on their grievances and everything that they want. Police have been doing cat and dogs, like running up and down against the protesters. On the other side, look, this is Odeon. And this is supposed to be a place where people board vehicles to leave the CBD or enter the CBD. But at the end of the day, it's now deserted. Police are lobbing tear gas and protesters responding with rocks. And you realize that they try to run away and hide. When the police have left, they come back. So we expect to have activities in this area, but there are not activities anymore right now, because the police are around and they are here in their numbers. From the others, from Moi Avenue, the other side, we have left protesters there chanting there and calling on the government to listen to them, but it doesn't look same. Even the police officers at some point realized that they're listening to the protesters because they listened to them, they talked to them, and they left. Some of them have used their tear gas canisters, and they're running out right now, and they're standing watching protesters chant and demonstrate and listen and wait if the president is going to listen to them. But it's going to be difficult as the day progresses because it's getting in the we're getting in the evening, it's getting dark, and you have to be afraid of what might happen later on. So I want to show you this. This is Odeon, and you're moving to the other side here along Mondlane Lane. The next to Moi Avenue, the activities here. You can see protesters running up and down, running away from the police who have... we've seen police officers use a live round here at Mondlane Lane, and you can see these young people running away from the tear gas canister, which is producing very heavy smoke. And at the end of the day, you have to run. You see, they're responding with the rocks against police vehicles which are passing. This is a police officer trying to launch here. That's the live round. There's another, that's one. He's trying to scare them to run away, shooting to the air. So this is the scenario right now. Those who can catch up their matatus, go home now, they can. There's one or two matatus standing by and waiting. It's not that rosy. On the other side of Moi Avenue, you can see that. That's a tear gas canister which has exploded just a few seconds ago. So this is how it is. And we can hear again and again police using live rounds, police lobbing tear gases to the protesters who have maintained their peaceful. But this has led to businesses within the CBD closed down. We've seen some young people with some rungus trying to say they are protecting the businesses from the looters, probably doing what they believe is their right. There's a young man here, if you can talk to me. Kaka, mbona uko kwa street? Mbona unaandamana leo?
Juu sasa hii gava yetu imetufinyilia sana. Kusana sana kwa ushuru, wanatulipisha azin, hii inaitwaje tax, wanatusumbua sana na tax. Maisha imekuwa ngumu na sisi wa Kenya tunasumbuka sana. Tax imekuwa juu sana.
Safi. Kaka, mbona uko kwenye street?
Maze tumechagua peaceful protesting, lakini wameamua ni matiagas na kutukimbiza. So kama sisi wananchi wa kawaida hatuna haki ya kufanya sisi kama peaceful demonstration. Kama
Is Jeff Mogera there just covering the protest in Nairobi CBD. This should be Kenyatta Avenue around Odeon, where majority of residents applying different routes just board their public transport from this particular station. But of course, as we saw Jeff interact with one of the protesters, we saw their police just lob tear gas just in front of them, and there were no protesters in sight at that particular moment. But this is the situation that we've been seeing, the same scenes we've been witnessing across the country. We've seen the same thing happen in Mombasa, we've seen it in Kisumu, we've seen it in Nakuru.